We've been hearing forever that 98.6 is the normal body temperature.
But new research claims that's not the case anymore, and there could be a new normal.
Your normal body temperature is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit.
Temperature of my body was about 98, about 0.6 degrees Fahrenheit.
The thermometer shows 98.6 degrees. That is normal body temperature.
And normal body temperature.
98.6 has long been considered that normal magic number, but Emily Kinzer is here with word from a doctor who said that's changing.
For 150 years, it's been commonly known, the average human body temperature.
98.6.
Even the thermometers at the drugstore say so. But what if we told you this is no longer the norm, and our bodies have cooled down considerably?
My name is Matt Cormier. Today I'm here to discuss a global health crisis that no one is addressing, the decline of our body temperatures worldwide. Healthy resting body temperature is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit or 37 degrees Celsius, and this has been the average globally for over a century. But our body temperatures have been collectively dropping, and 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit is no longer the average. Most people can no longer maintain healthy resting body temperature. So what's going on? Why is a person's body temperature important? And what's causing our body temperatures to drop? Let's start with the basics. A person's body temperature is one of the most accurate markers of overall immune function and metabolic rate. That's why it's known as a vital sign. In the 1800s, Dr. Carroll measured thousands of his patients' body temperatures and concluded that 98.6 degrees was the average. For over a century, 98.6 degrees remained the average and was considered the gold standard marker for good health. But something happened after 1975. Our body temperature started dropping. 98.6 degrees is no longer the average. Today, the average is 97.7 degrees Fahrenheit. So why is body temperature so important and considered a vital sign? Let's briefly look at how changes in body temperature indicate changes with immune function and metabolism. A temperature above 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit indicates acute illness and active immune response. Your metabolic rate speeds up to provide fuel for this inflammatory response to clear a pathogen. At 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, this is considered immune system homeostasis. Everything is running as it should. When a person's body temperature falls below 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, it means the immune system is suppressed and can't mount a proper inflammatory response to clear pathogens. Infections become chronic and exist in a latent state that generate low-grade inflammation that waxes and wanes. Low body temperature often coincides with hypersensitivities to dietary and environmental allergens, and metabolic rate is slow and sluggish. Our immune systems rely on coordinated reactions to deal with pathogens, many of which are temperature sensitive. A person's body temperature provides a thermal exclusion zone for infections like viruses, parasites, bacteria, and fungus. Now we're going to talk about metabolic rate.
And we think that body temperature has to do with basal metabolic rate.
Your body generates heat as a byproduct of metabolic reactions, breaking down nutrients and converting them into energy. A higher metabolic rate produces more heat.
We get two forms of energy, motion and heat, by the chemical combination of oxygen and food.
For every 1.8 degree drop in body temperature, metabolic rate decreases by 10%. The enzymes that facilitate chemical reactions in the body work optimally at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit as well. So if your core temperature drops, enzyme activity slows, reducing energy production and overall function. Historically, it's been common for the elderly to have lower body temperatures. This happens because as we age, our metabolism slows down and our hormone levels drop. Studies have shown that seniors rarely hit 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and the older they are, the lower their body temperature becomes. So, if it's normal for our body temperatures to drop as we age, why are the body temperatures of children, teenagers, and middle-aged adults dropping? One major factor in this could be our hormones. Testosterone, for instance, is a key regulator of metabolic rate and metabolism. In the same time frames that our body temperatures have been dropping, so have men's testosterone levels across all age groups. Currently, men's testosterone levels in the United States are their lowest in recorded history. As the average body temperature among younger generation continues to fall, we're seeing a rise in conditions once reserved for old age, such as diabetes, chronic kidney disease, arthritis, and obesity. Now we're going to talk about the link between body temperature and metabolic rate, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, and cancer. A slow metabolic rate is a precursor to metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is a cluster of biochemical and physiological abnormalities associated with the development of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, and many autoimmune conditions. 40% of the United States population currently meets the criteria for metabolic syndrome, and only 12% of us are considered metabolically healthy. It's established that a lower body temperature is tied to a slower metabolism, and a slower metabolism is directly linked to insulin resistance and diabetes. In the same time frame that our body temperatures have been dropping, cases of diabetes have been skyrocketing. There has been a six-fold increase in diabetes diagnoses in the United States, going from 5.7 million in 1980 to 38 million in 2021. Globally, the rate of diabetes diagnoses has gone from 200 million in 1990 to 830 million in 2022. According to the CDC, the rate of diabetes is expected to double by the year 2050. Having diabetes significantly raises your risk for various types of cancer. As our body temperatures have been dropping, cancer rates have been skyrocketing as well. Currently, 1 out of 2 men and 1 out of 3 women will be diagnosed with cancer at some point in their lives today. Multiple studies have shown that raising core temperature is an effective treatment strategy for many different diseases and conditions, including cancer and even autism. Maybe you've heard the quote, "Give me the power to produce fever and I'll cure all disease." Parmenides, 500 BC. There's something known as the fever effect with autism spectrum disorder. It's been shown that when a child with autism develops a fever, they see a drastic reduction in the symptoms they're experiencing. It's even been shown that nonverbal autistic children become verbal when their body temperature elevates. As soon as their fever comes down and body temperature decreases, their symptoms return. The rate of autism diagnoses in the United States is currently 1 out of 36. There has been a narrative pushed around the world to normalize the drop in body temperatures we're experiencing. They're trying to create a new normal.
We're living much healthier lifestyles now. There's an awareness on exercise, there's an awareness on nutrition, and that is allowing our bodies not to work as hard to maintain a steady temperature. Accessibility of over-the-counter medications like NSAIDs or ibuprofen, for example, is helping our bodies decrease inflammation. And when there's less inflammation, there's a lower body temperature.
A noteworthy study was conducted in 2002 that disproved this narrative. It was shown that a relatively isolated community of people in the Bolivian Amazon, known as the Chamani tribe, still held healthy resting body temperature of 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, despite the drop happening globally. They also had some of the lowest rates of diabetes, heart disease, and Alzheimer's disease in the world. But in just 16 years, they experienced a drastic decline in body temperature that mirrored what was happening elsewhere in the world. Their body temperatures dropped from 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit to 97.7 degrees Fahrenheit in less than 2 decades. Their living conditions didn't change, neither did their diets, and they weren't dealing with fewer infections. Something new was introduced into their community that caused their body temperatures to drop. We'll get into that in episode 2. In episode 2, we'll be covering what's causing our body temperatures to drop, what it means for your health if you have low body temperature, and a practical guide to restoring metabolic rate and achieving 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. "98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, right on the money." Today, we've learned the importance of body temperature in relation to health and disease. Are you hitting healthy 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, or are you running colder? What about your family? What about your children or your grandchildren? Thank you for watching. Please give this a share. We'll see you on episode 2. This is Health Uncensored.
Everybody just do us a favor and share out the space. This is a big one. We really need some eyeballs on it, need some ears on it. Kelly J, we streaming?
Yes, we are. We are live on X Live and KUX TV and Rumble and Pilled and Kick and YouTube. I think I got
Fantastic.
everything.
Fantastic. Really, really appreciate it. We're just going to give this 2 more minutes. We'll get going at 8:05.
And I will put the links to the streaming in the Purple Pill chat.
Fantastic. And I'll repeat this, but if you want to comment in the Purple Pill and add some comments or some questions, just need to join the Club MAHA community. This is a space launched from the Club MAHA community. Thanks for being here, Bumble, and everybody else. Going to give this 1 more minute, and then we're just going to get on going because this is recorded, and we'll share it out. We're also going to have a comprehensive thread on this tomorrow, and we're probably going to record this at some point real soon as a video presentation as well.
That'll be great because I, for one, had no idea that this was going on. And then the effect of the body temperature dropping on your entire health system.
Exactly. I mean, it's profound, and I hadn't heard about this either, so I was really surprised and glad that folks like Matt are doing this kind of research, because otherwise sometimes we would just literally never know. Yeah, okay, so it is 8:05. Let's go ahead and get going. I'm going to get some housekeeping out of the way, and then we're going to turn it over to Matt to offer his presentation. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this Club MAHA special presentation. This is an expose on the phenomenon of falling global body temperatures with our friend Matt Cormier at Health Uncensored. He brought this to our attention, alarmed that no one was talking about it, and has created a presentation for us today so we can all start raising alarm bells. For the housekeeping, first, for those who aren't familiar, Club MAHA is an independent grassroots project building community and coalition to make America healthy again. We do a podcast every Wednesday hosted by myself, Kyle Kemper, Ian Carroll, and a rotating crew of friends and guests. We also do MAHA news and update spaces every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern time here in the Club MAHA X community. Join the community if you want to drop comments in the Purple Pill and for alerts whenever we go live with spaces and live streams. I've also recently begun working with. Someone got a live mic. Matt, you got a live mic, bud. Matt. Hot mic, man. Sorry about that. Anyway, I've also begun working with Cooking with Chris to address my chronic health conditions that I've been dealing with my entire life. And we're doing this work publicly, focusing on digestive and metabolic health. Many, if not most Americans suffer from gut-related health conditions, even if they don't know it. I'm going through this process publicly to educate and inspire others to take control of their own health. If you'd like to join me on this journey, we're offering a 5% discount on Chris's services. So to do that, just DM Cooking with Chris and mention the code ClubMaha. We do also have some great partners that really deserve a shout out here. The Council on Domestic Relations, Billy Zero and Danielle have been building coalition and connecting us with amazing guests, and we really couldn't do a lot of this work without them. America Mission, who's here with us tonight, has been boosting our signal, streaming us out to spaces on things like X Live, QUXTX, Rumble, Pilled, YouTube, and Kick. Please do give them a follow. They do amazing work. We've also been working with the Beef Initiative to help provide our community with the most pristine family rancher raised meat in America. It's one of the best things we can do for our health and one of the best things we can do to support our domestic American ranchers that are doing it right. To check out our offerings with them, head on over to beefinitiative.com/pages/ClubMaha. And if you want to support the work we do at Club MAHA, head on over to patreon.com/ClubMaha and show us some love there. With that all out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this. Today's space is going to be about an hour long, starting from about now. Matt's going to present his findings. I may ask some clarifying questions throughout his presentation, and then we'll take some time for questions and discussion with our panel. Please follow the hosts and the speakers to stay informed generally on major MAHA and health topics. Now, without further ado, I would like to turn it now over to Matt to tell us about the frightening phenomenon of falling global body temperatures. Matt, thank you again, man, for bringing this to our attention. What do you have for us today?
Absolutely. I kind of want to preface this by saying that nowadays online, things tend to get exaggerated or blown out of proportion or sensationalized. Tonight, this isn't one of those topics. This is something that's really, really serious with broad implications, and the magnitude of this can't be overstated. I created a video series on the decline of our body temperatures happening around the world. It's a topic that's not receiving hardly any attention, and certainly not from anyone in any of the authorities in our healthcare institutions or agencies. Let me put this up here. Just, I guess, what? Give me 1 second. So let me. We'll start with the basics. A person's body temperature is one of the most accurate markers of overall immune function and metabolic rate. That's why it's known as a vital sign. So anytime you go into a doctor's, one of the first things they do, they check your body temperature. It gives vital information about what's going on inside you. For 150 years, the average body temperature collectively around the world was 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. And that was considered the gold standard marker for good health. Since the Industrial Revolution, slowly body temperature started dropping. In 1975, the speed and frequency in which our body temperatures were dropping started accelerating. Body temperature started coming down. Between the year 2000 and 2017, the average changed. So the 98.6 degree Fahrenheit average that we had globally around the world for over 150 years dropped. And 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit currently is no longer the average. Today, the average is between 97.9 and 97.7 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on what research you look at. So this is huge. I'm going to talk about a little bit tonight the role body temperature has in immune function and metabolism and metabolic rate. But so first we'll start with immune function. A person's body temperature, healthy body temperature, provides what's known as a thermal exclusion zone against infections and pathogens. There's been a lot of different studies on the role of body temperature against viral infections. Elevated body temperature clears viral infections. There's a lot of other studies as well showing defenses against fungal infections, parasitic infections, bacteria. So to put it simply, if you contract an infection, you want elevated body temperature. You want fever to clear it. Otherwise, an infection can become chronic. The fact that our body temperatures are dropping globally, it indicates immune system suppression, meaning we're not fighting off infections properly anymore, and infections are becoming chronic. Is everyone with me so far, kind of in this understanding, you know, as far as fever goes and immune function and body temperature?
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear. Temperature goes up, that helps clear an infection. Super important.
Right. Okay. So our body temperatures have been steadily declining, and at the same time, the rates of chronic illness have been rising. And you know, there's a direct link there between those two. Let me see. Hang on 1 second. I'm just trying to post something up here for the nest here. Just give me 1 second.
Why don't you just keep going with the verbal part? We're going to do a whole comprehensive thread tomorrow. I wouldn't worry too much about posting.
Okay, so as I was mentioning, a person's body temperature provides a thermal
Forever
exclusion
that
zone.
98.6 is the normal body temperature.
Elevated
But new
body
research
temperature
claims that's
clears
not the case
infections.
anymore.
So
And
as our body temperatures have been dropping, it means that our immune systems are being suppressed, and we can't fight off infections anymore. Things become chronic, or they exist in a latent state and generate chronic low-grade inflammation. When we start talking about pretty much any disease of the mind or body, it's all rooted in inflammation. Chronic inflammation is what triggers a disease process. The other end of this discussion, as far as immune function goes, is basal metabolic rate. So a person's basal metabolic rate is the process in which a person converts converts calories into energy and heat. And this supports vital processes in the body. Low basal metabolic rate is a precursor and indicator of diabetes. So I'm sorry, give me 1 second here.
All right, so it looks like Matt's just loading up some slides here so that he can keep moving a little more smoothly through the presentation. He was on the Club MAHA podcast on Wednesday, and really kind of blew our minds with this, and also about the research he's done. And he's actually published a study about a novel pathway of how vaccines might have a role in causing autism. and how it's not explicitly the vaccines, but rather that vaccines can cause a triggering of latent viruses that can themselves trigger a what is an encephalitis in the brain. And it's the encephalitis meaning like inflammation in the brain, and inflammation in the brain with a suppressed immune system is apparently shown to potentially trigger autism. So all these like childhood cases of autism could potentially be that we're loading them up with these vaccines that are intentionally suppressing their immune system and potentially triggering latent viruses, often because there's viruses in the vaccine themselves causing encephalitis in the brain, and then boom, autism. And he's actually pulled together a bunch of cases where adults, young adults and full-blown adults up to age like 31 are suddenly showing symptoms of autism after either getting a vaccine or experiencing encephalitis of the brain. And so this is actually the thing that that Matt brought to my attention that impressed me with him so much, is that he's looking at these issues that we're all looking at, but coming up with very novel approaches. And the way he's been looking at them, there's nuance that I'm not hearing anywhere else. And so while he's maybe not as practiced as a presenter, his work as an independent research is just so critical. So do bear with us for a moment as he pulls his slides up, because the information he has is just so important.
Yeah, I need to apologize. I had a computer problem tonight, and I had 6 pages worth of posts that basically I had links, I had graphs, I had pictures, I had studies, and I had explanations of everything. And about 20 minutes before this space started, I went to go towards another study to include it, and by mistake, I was in the wrong. I was on the X website. So when I went into this next website, it deleted everything I had. So I apologize.
Well, so Matt, so let's just slow down for a second. You know a lot about this just off the top of your head. Rather than worrying too much about the slides and the links and everything, because we can bring that up later, let's just talk through it real quick, right? So global body temperatures are dropping. Just tell us more about that. So elevated body temperatures, fevers helped clear an infection. A basal metabolic rate of 98.6 historically has been at like humanity's healthy resting body temperature. Body temperatures are dropping. Do we know why that's happening? And you're saying that it's happening globally, not just in the United States, but all around the world. I believe on Wednesday you even mentioned that there was a tribe in South America that up until 20 years ago still had the normal 98.6 degree metabolic rate. And since then, their body temperatures have been dropping too. So let's just sort of like pick up from there and talk it out.
Gotcha. Okay, so kind of we'll reset here. So we'll start over. Okay, so a person's body temperature is one of the most accurate markers of immune function and basal metabolic rate. That's why it's known as a vital sign. In the 1800s, I believe it was 1843, a doctor by the name of Carroll measured thousands of his patients' body temperatures and concluded that 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit was the average. For over a century, 98.6 degrees remained the average around the world. This was considered the gold standard marker for overall health. There's dozens of studies, if not hundreds, throughout the 1900s on this, specifically on 98.6 degree body temperature. Since the start of the Industrial Revolution, our body temperatures around the world slowly started dropping. In 1975, the speed in which they were dropping started picking up. In the early 2000s, somewhere between 2000 and 2017, our average body temperature dropped around the world. So that gold standard that we once had, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, was no more. Today, most people are running colder. Very few people can maintain healthy 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit body temperature.
Okay, and you say that this falling global body temperature started around the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. It's sped up around 1975, and it's gotten even worse today. So a couple of questions. One is, do we have a sense or some leads on what the common factors are that are making our body temperatures drop? And also, do we know what the average body temperature is today?
The average body temperature today, depending on what research you look at, is between 97.7 degrees and 97.9 degrees Fahrenheit.
So we're almost a full degree now below what was the gold standard, which may not sound like a lot, but when you're talking about historically for at least 150 years being the norm for ideal health, 1 degree might actually be a lot.
Yeah, well, absolutely. It's significant, certainly. As far as the contributors to what's causing our body temperatures to drop, we'll talk about that in a bit, but I kind of want to establish the basics on body temperature.
Okay.
So when we're talking about body temperature, one of the main things we're talking about is basal metabolic rate. And basal metabolic rate is the process in which a person utilizes food and calories and turns them into energy and heat. And that energy supports vital processes in the body. Everything from your hormones, your respiration, your digestion, detoxification, and immune system defenses against pathogens. So a lower body temperature means a lower basal metabolic rate. One of the correlations that's really striking, in the same time frame that our body temperatures have been dropping, cases of diabetes have been steadily rising. And let me see here. There's multiple studies showing how low basal metabolic rate is directly linked to insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. So in that time frame between 1975 and now, as our body temperatures have dropped, the case of diabetes have skyrocketed. And when we start talking about diabetes, we also start talking about metabolic syndrome, which has become commonplace in the United States. So lower body temperature means lower basal metabolic rate. Lower basal metabolic rate means your increased risk for metabolic syndrome and diabetes. The rates of diabetes, I have it here in front of me. The rates of diabetes have gone from, let me see here. In 1980, the rate of diabetes in the United States, the rate of diabetes diagnosis in the United States was 5.7 million. In 2021, it's now, in 2021, it was 38 million. And around the world, in 1990, the rate of diabetes diagnosis was 200 million. And in 2022, it was 830 million. Ooh. So a significant rise. When we start talking about low basal metabolic rate, diabetes, and we get into metabolic syndrome. And basically, metabolic syndrome is kind of an umbrella term for a cluster of different conditions: heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, and insulin resistance. And it's rooted in chronic inflammation and immune system dysregulation. That goes hand in hand with low body temperature. A lot of people are aware they get if they contract an infection, let's say a virus, for instance, they get a fever. And then the immune system clears the infection and they return to homeostasis. What's happening now is that we're not mounting proper fevers. Our body temperatures are low, our immune system is suppressed. So infections are becoming chronic. This is a major driver in metabolic syndrome and in diabetes as well. But every condition under that metabolic syndrome kind of umbrella, whether it's Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, diabetes, etc., it's all rooted in chronic infection and chronic inflammation.
And this is super relevant in today's political landscape in public health with Bobby at HHS, because of course his big flagship issue is that the United States, and now what you're saying is essentially the world, has a chronic disease epidemic. And this, you're saying, is a very powerful contributing factor to that, as you rightly point out, I've never heard about it.
Yeah. No one's talking about this. At the start of the COVID pandemic, a lot of people were urged to take their body temperatures, and many people hadn't done that in many years. Not very many people were paying attention to that and thermal regulation. But to make a long story short, at the start of the pandemic, a lot of people started taking their body temperatures, and they were becoming concerned. They were going to their primary care doctors saying, "Hey, my body temperature is low. I'm no longer 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Is this a concern? Is this a problem?" And at that time, there was a short media campaign, on this, and basically the entire media campaign on this was based on opinion. There's no science. Right now, there's nothing published, nothing conclusive published on what's causing our body temperature to drop. There's only opinion and speculation.
Okay.
But what I did, and the goal of my research was to take a look at the patterns and gaps in the medical literature that I could find on body temperature and its role in different disease processes and chronic illness. And there's a lot of correlating evidence. So let me see here. I'm trying to figure out.
Okay, so we don't know why yet, but you've got some leads.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to, like I said, I apologize for anyone listening. I had a really in-depth presentation, and I was set to just walk through everything, and that way everyone could see and kind of follow along and click the links. And I thought it would be really beneficial to see. So it's just been a long, stressful day. Okay, so body temperature declined. Lower body temperature is indicative of low basal metabolic rate and slow metabolism. And low basal metabolic rate and slow metabolism is linked to metabolic syndrome and diabetes. There was a great study that came out recently, I believe it was in 2022, showing how only 12% of the United States population is considered metabolically healthy. Everyone else, so 88% of the population in the US is dealing with some degree of metabolic disease. And, when we're talking about chronic metabolic disease, we're talking about chronic inflammation. That ties back into, at the start of when I mentioned this, is that when you have lower body temperature, it means the immune system is suppressed. So the immune system can't mount a proper response to clear any pathogen. Everything kind of lingers. In the same time frames that our body temperatures, here we go. Now I'm getting back into it here. So in the process of researching this and kind of going through data, one thing really interesting I found was that there's a lot of research showing how, as a person ages, in particular when they get into their elderly years, their body temperatures dropped, and that's been consistent for over 100 years. So back when our average body temperatures were consistent 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, those in the elderly population, they had lower body temperatures. That was normal. It's normal for a person's body temperature to decline as they age. The problem is that when we look at that data and we can see, okay, when a person gets into their 60s and 70s and 80s, they experience lower body temperature. They can no longer maintain healthy 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, how does that correlate to what's happening with teenagers or middle-aged adults or children that are now experiencing body temperature, the lowering of body temperature? And one major factor in that could be our hormones. So in the same time frame that our body temperatures have been dropping, men's testosterone levels have been dropping as well in the United States. I believe it's been 1% per year since the 1950s.
Yeah, I heard recently, I think it was Bobby said that the average teenage boy today has lower testosterone than like a 60 or 70-year-old man.
Yeah, I read that study. I believe the comparison was from a 65-year-old man in the year 2000 had higher testosterone than the average 20-year-old does today.
That's horrifying.
Yeah, it's very, very concerning. But that correlates to the lowering of body temperature. So those in the elderly community, they have lower hormones. Testosterone drops as you age. And testosterone is also plays an important part in metabolic health and metabolic function and basal
Mhm.
metabolic rate. So as our body temperatures have been dropping, so have men's testosterone levels. We're experiencing metabolic disease, and that correlates with the research on what's happening in historically what's been shown about body temperature in those in the elderly community. Let me see here. Give me 1 second.
What point are you working to next?
I'm just bringing up my slides here. Just give me 1 second.
Sure, I could just do a little tap dance.
Hey, brother, I've carried a number of briefs over my time doing a tap dance in between pulling up slides. So it happens.
Yeah, totally.
No worries.
Totally. Appreciate your patience, man. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's all about the value of the information. I know with spaces, there's a lot of like polish involved on the giant accounts and whatnot, but this is a grassroots project. This is a community project. We're just crowdsourcing information and bringing people together and having the important conversations. It's kind of like the difference between a home cooked meal versus going fine dining. I just care that the meal is nutritious and tastes good.
Also in the purple pill too, for people can look at later, I linked to his episodes 1 and 2 for the documentary, so people can look at that later as well.
Thanks for that, Kelly J.
You're welcome.
Is it still possible to do video here on Spaces?
Not that I know of. That would be for
It is messed up.
not well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we got issues where listeners can't see the video, or it comes in vertical instead of horizontal. It's a mess. So they're still working.
Isn't that the
on
best?
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Adam's
mean
doing
a lot.
thumbs down. He's our guru for the video. and
Yeah.
yeah, he's got the thumbs down.
I feel like X is so close on a number of levels, and then everything is just not quite there. Especially with like communities and DMs. Like I use the DMs on X a lot, but man, they suck. They are so painful. But don't worry about all that, man. We're getting this information out. What's really important is that we get this conversation going, that we get people aware of it and starting to share this. And we'll continue refining the presentation as the days and weeks go on. Because this is an issue that's been ongoing, as you say, for about 100 years now. This has been happening. We finally have Bobby in office doing things about our chronic health conditions and just health and food and medicine in general. So this is the beginning of the conversation, and that's what's most important. But what are you working towards here next, Matt?
I'm trying to bring, my goal of this was to bring up posts and slides at the same time. And that way I could kind of go through, a linear order in the order of events of body temperature dropping, the impact on metabolic health and metabolic rate, the impact on immune function, and go through the studies as well. That's kind of what I had planned and prepared.
Well, let's you got to kind of have to roll with it. Things happen. So let's just roll with it a little more organically, a little more fluidly.
I gotcha. Okay, so we'll do this. Like I said, I apologize to anyone listening, but we'll do this kind of on the fly. But I want to bring this up here.
Yep. And the important thing to know is that you do have references, you've got studies, you've connected a lot of dots, and following this space probably tomorrow we'll have a really nice comprehensive thread that'll be maybe a little more linear.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay, so it's been shown there's quite a bit of research. This is important. So there's quite a lot of research on the role of body temperature and the role body temperature plays in immune function against different pathogens, whether it's viral infections, parasitic infections, bacterial infections, fungal infections. There's a great study specifically on fungal infections that showed that 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit was the ideal temperature for providing protection against fungal infections. And that was conclusive. One of the things happening that's been getting a lot of awareness and a lot of news coverage around the world in the past few years is that as our body temperatures have dropped, they're not correlating this, but as our body temperatures have dropped, the rate of fungal-related illnesses and diseases is rising rapidly around the world. And we start talking about opportunistic infection. So if fungal infections are rising and the rate and the incidence of fungal infections are rising, it means there's something happening to us as far as immune function goes. So the two of those things go hand in hand. What else?
Well, and you know, it seems to me, and I could be wrong here, that could actually go in both directions. Like in the U.S., the quality of home construction seems to have really gone down over the last 30 to 50 years. And a lot of these houses, pardon my French, but they're kind of shit boxes. And so a lot of them get moldy. And a lot of them are rental properties where the landlords will do as little as they can possibly get away with to maintain them, versus a homeowner that's probably going to do a lot more to make sure that a home is in ship shape. So if we have more mold exposure and our landlords aren't doing anything about it and we don't know how to recognize the signs of it, then we might be getting more mold and fungal infections, not knowing what to do about it, not knowing we need to do anything about it. And who knows, that could be contributing in the other direction to our body temperatures dropping, because again, chronic inflammation unaddressed, leading to suppressed immune systems, might in itself lower our body temperatures, as well as something else lowering our body temperatures, making us more susceptible to them.
You know, you say that, I want to jump in here really quick
Yeah,
and
sure,
point
man.
out something, because, you know, I got dragged into this for basically, I talk about the military a lot. I spent 21 years in the Army, but what I can tell firsthand and from, you know, hundreds of articles that have been written about this is that there is an epidemic of mold in the barracks for our younger enlisted troops across the military in every branch. It is an absolute epidemic. It's crawling up the walls. Leaders don't know how to deal with it. And our living spaces are like literally impairing and crippling our troops in real time. And this is a national security issue.
I was about to
So
say,
no
it's a
joke.
public health issue and it's a national security issue, as is health
much.
generally in the United States. It's a national security issue. It's an economic issue, public health issue. It's all of it. It's an ethical issue. And man, I'm glad you bring that up, because, you know, the biggest story, not to derail anything, but the biggest story I'm aware of with military health is the burn pits, right? In Iraq and places like that.
I
Yeah.
have firsthand knowledge of this. I spent a year in Balad, and I visited the burn pits quite often. I'm on the registry myself, and I'm sure I didn't get affected as near as much as other people. But I do have a breathing related issue now, and whether I can say it's from burn pits or not, the fact is I spent a significant amount of time at those places, and I can't even begin to describe how bad it really is. So,
Man, maybe we can
maybe
we can get you in a space sometime to talk about that and other health issues in the military. It'd be really, really amazing to get your perspective on that.
Sure.
But yeah, but I bring that and sort of like housing construction and stuff like that up, because I've been renting my whole life, and I've had so much mold exposure. You know, you'll be in the shower and you'll look at the ceiling, and it's got the brown and black spots on it. So it's really scary. But anyway, Matt, let's get back to you, buddy.
Sure. When it comes to mold exposure and fungal infections, one of the major risk factors is uncontrolled diabetes or insulin resistance. And when we start talking about diabetes, primarily we're talking about liver disease, liver and pancreatic disease. That's how kind of mold proliferates in the body, and fungal infections proliferate. So you have chronic inflammation, you have suppressed immune response, and then now you can become host to opportunistic infection like mold. You know, I'm just looking up here the statistics. As again, I had everything here, but
That's okay.
Yeah,
And we don't need to get too deep into the details if that's going to derail the conversation. We can do that at another time.
Gotcha. So, we're dealing with more opportunistic infection, and it goes hand in hand with chronic illness. as far as the contributors to what's causing our body temperature to drop. So the basics of body temperature, and it's called thermal regulation. That's the technical term. The basics of body temperature is that there's an area in the brain known as the hypothalamus, and that basically acts as your body's thermostat. So if body temperature is low, generally speaking, it means there's problems in the central nervous system, in the hypothalamus, the HPA axis. One of the big impactors of this, one of the big contributors to hypothalamus dysfunction is exposure to heavy metal toxins. Just recently, I saw on Joe Rogan, this was maybe a couple weeks ago, they were kind of joking how Girl Scout cookies in the United States are testing positive for lead and cadmium and mercury. There was a really, really disturbing study that came out in 2021 showing how the majority of the baby food in the United States, organic baby food included, is testing extremely high for heavy metals.
That's right. Yeah. In fact, Bumble dropped in the purple pill that his experience is that his temperature has dropped to an average of like 96.2. And part of that is his ability or inability to expend energy through physical fitness, but also the absorption of rampant heavy metals.
Right, exactly. So there's several studies on that, particularly in animal models. Animal models that are exposed to heavy metals, things like mercury, lead, cadmium, they have their body temperatures drop. And when they do autopsies on these animals, on lab mice, it's shown that the heavy metals accumulate in the brain and the hypothalamus. And that directly causes thermal regulation problems and issues with low body temperature. One of the other big contributors is antibiotic use. There are several studies, again, in animal models, whether it be lab rabbits or lab mice, showing that the use of prescription grade antibiotics disturbs the GI microbiome and the microbiota, and resulting in lowering of body temperature as well. It ties into interesting correlating factors that there's research showing how antibiotic use early on in life creates immune system problems and increases the likelihood of developing diabetes and insulin resistance later on in life. So there's so much correlating data here that it really starts to paint a picture, a pretty clear picture of what's going on. So heavy metals, right? That's a big contributor. We're all being exposed. One of the main risks and exposures to heavy metals beyond what's happening from environmental pollution and basically the effect environmental pollution of that getting into our crops and into our soil and into our water systems. The other big one would be amalgam fillings. Dental.
Oh man.
That.
And it's interesting because when I was a kid, I used to get bronchitis every year. I mean, like clockwork every year. Every year they'd give me a cycle of antibiotics. Of course, I also got a bunch of the vaccines. I was born in 1982, so not as many as started being given in the 90s and the 2000s, but a bunch. And then what was that last bit that you just said? Oh, the amalgam fillings. I had like 10 of them that I didn't get replaced until maybe 10 years ago. So it just talking about like this confluence of factors and the exposures that we have, the heavy metals in baby food. There's heavy metals in chocolate, even like chocolate that we think is high quality. There's heavy metals in everything. If you live near a coal-fired power plant, God forbid. Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah, one of the biggest exposure sources though is from dental fillings. Dental fillings contain 50% mercury. By early 1990, over 200 million Americans had mercury-releasing amalgam dental fillings. And
and these are the silver ones that some of you folks in the chat here might still have. And just so you know, I don't know if you were going to get to this, Matt. Sorry if you were. You can get those replaced with what are called composite fillings. And I actually don't know what those are made of. They might be made of microplastics. I have no idea, but it's probably still better than the mercury-based amalgam fillings.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. So heavy metals, antibiotics, and then the other big one that I came across was microplastics as well. There was another disturbing study showing how they're doing autopsies now, and on average, they're finding 7 grams of microplastics in people's brains. Those that are suffering from a chronic neurological inflammatory condition, let's say like Alzheimer's, they're finding up to 10 grams of microplastics in the brains. And that's on average, everyone. So that's really concerning as well. There's several studies showing how microplastics affect thermoregulation and lower body temperature. What's interesting is that these 3 things, heavy metal exposures, antibiotics, microplastics, they're shown to lower body temperature, but then there's also a lot of research showing how they disrupt innate immune response as well. So at the beginning of the discussion, I was talking about how body temperature provides protection against infections and pathogens. The same things that are lowering our body temperature are shown to disrupt the immune response to infections as well. So, there's an overlapping correlation there, whether it be heavy metals or microplastics or antibiotics. But the real, I guess, the most concerning thing about all of this is that there isn't any research being conducted, at least not that I'm aware of, and this isn't really being broadly talked about. So that's kind of what we're doing here tonight, and that's why I created a video series to kind of raise awareness to talk about this.
Yep. Do you want to throw so the link to the first episode is up in the nest, and you have 3 episodes so far?
I have 2 episodes out right now. I have a 3rd episode coming out soon. I've researched a lot and a lot of trial and error on myself in how to improve metabolic rate and detoxification and how to bring body temperature up to 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. And
have you managed to do that? Are you up to 98.6?
I can do it consistently. Yeah, it takes me about 4 days. The problem is that this is kind of the black pill of the discussion is that if body temperature is low, the immune system is suppressed, right? Low basal metabolic rate, digestion is slow, everything is slow in the body. Enzyme production kind of suffers as well. So when the immune system is suppressed, a person will deal with infections, chronic infections, late infections. The problem is we start talking about what's known as stealth infections. So it's when you're harboring a pathogen, but there's no immune response. You don't get a proper inflammatory response or proper fever to clear it, and it can go under the radar, with doctors and healthcare professionals. So here's the concerning part is that when a person gets healthy and body temperature elevates, body temperature raises, those underlying latent infections become acute. You start drawing a proper inflammatory response to clear pathogens. And a lot of people nowadays confuse being functional with being healthy. People think they can work a 9-to-5 job. They prepare dinner every night for their children. They watch TV. Maybe they go out on the weekend for cocktails. They think
good enough.
And the problem is that's not true. Just because someone is functional doesn't mean they're healthy. And the concerning aspect of all of this is that there's a high likelihood that when a person gets healthy, it can lead to catastrophic health events. So
they get sick again because their body starts dealing with the underlying conditions.
Correct. Exactly.
And I've heard this referred to as a healing crisis, usually in like woo-woo circles. But I'm kind of into the woo-woo, so I've always been really interested in this concept.
Yes, there's a lot of holistic practitioners, and it's becoming commonplace as people steer away from conventional Western medicine. They're looking into alternative healthcare and alternative means of healthcare. And one of the mistakes, in my opinion, that's being made is that people are, let's say someone's dealing with chronic Lyme disease, or maybe they're dealing with chronic fungal infections, mold exposures, or chronic viral infections, long COVID, long Epstein-Barr virus, etc. It's not the pathogen itself. So you're not going to have chronic Lyme disease because you're not taking antibiotics. If a pathogen becomes chronic, it's immune system problems. And in order to clear that pathogen, you have to restore immune function.
And then when you do that, some of this other stuff comes up. What do you do when the other stuff comes up?
I mean, that's kind of on a case-by-case basis. I think it depends on the location of infection, really.
Got it. Whether you're talking about like liver, pancreas, kidneys, etc.
Or brain, right.
Or brain.
A lot of people are dealing with chronic neurological issues nowadays. One of the easiest ways to spot that is if a person has sensitivity to visual or auditory stimuli. So if loud music, if crowded shopping centers, anything that overstimulates the senses.
Yeah, perfumes and fragrances.
Sure, right. Yeah. But anything that overstimulates the senses, if you notice a change, if you notice adverse effects from that, it's likely that there's some degree of neurological inflammation. Anyone with an anxiety disorder, let's say social anxiety, ruminating thoughts, and things like that, there's a lot of literature on that as well as being directly involved with chronic neurological inflammation, chronic low-grade neurological inflammation. The same thing goes for autism. You know, autism right now is 1 out of 31, but that's rooted in chronic neurological inflammation as well. The problem is that when a person gets healthy, that chronic inflammation becomes acute. So basically, to put it simply, anything you're dealing with gets significantly worse as you go through what's known as, like I said, a healing crisis.
Right. And the thing is, if we want to get healthy, I mean, really generally healthy as individuals and a society, we need to be prepared for these things to happen, and prepared to work through them.
Absolutely. I'm curious if I can get kind of, I'd like to hear if anyone's checked recently, like Damo, what's your body temperature?
You know, since we started talking about this, I haven't had a chance to check. However, because I just started my work with, I just started my work with Chris, Cooking with Chris, who's an incredible account, by the way. I recommend everyone go follow him. He posts incredible stuff about diet, nutrition. He has a cookbook, and he's constantly posting delicious looking recipes. It's awesome. But he offers a service to help people heal their gut and metabolic issues. And I've just taken him on to do that, and I'm doing the whole thing publicly. We're airing all of our consultations publicly, and I'm going to be getting some lab tests here real soon. Blood, stool, I think urine, that sort of thing. When I do that, I will be sure to get my temperature checked, and I will report back.
Sam, how about you? Have you taken your body temperature recently?
Not that I can recall, man. I don't know. I know my kids, and I don't know if this is different for children, but my kids are typically in the mid to high 70s or 97s, excuse me.
Mid to high 97s.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's typical or not for a child. They're 3 and 5, so
that's interesting.
So Matt, you want to give him some bad news here?
Well, I don't really want to be a bearer of bad news, but
you're good.
It's just more or less. Can I ask you this, Sam? And I don't want to get into your personal information about your children.
No, you're good.
Your children deal with any problems, let's say, with allergies, food allergies.
So my daughter is the picture of health. She's 3 years old. My son, 5 years old, has been on death's doorstep more times than I can count. He's been in the ICU at least 10 times. I'm not talking ER, I'm talking ICU. Currently, we're having him in a battery of tests. He's working with a pulmonologist on a battery of tests, but he's also he's going to see a geneticist, and we are working through all sorts of issues because when he gets sick, it turns into full-blown infection, multiple different infections, and I can't even tell you how bad his health really is. Now, the thing is, my son was vaccinated, and then COVID happened. I got red-pilled when they tried to kill me, and then my daughter has not been vaccinated, so that's just anecdotal stuff. But
sure,
there you go.
Yeah.
Did those health problems start after he received those vaccines?
He was a baby. He got all of his doses up through the age of 2 or 3 or whatever it was, and then the COVID thing happened. All the stuff with that shot happened. I'm actually a COVID vaccine injury myself. I got that before I had any inkling that vaccines are what they are. But anyways, my daughter, like I said, she couldn't be healthier. She is strong as an ox. And then my son is just an absolute crippled body boy who struggled to just live. So we can't take him into daycare. He's missed more school than I can count, but they give him special exceptions. And he's, like I said, he's currently going through a battery of tests to try to figure out what's going on with him.
I'm really sorry to hear that, Sam. That, I definitely empathize with that, but yeah, very sorry to hear that. And anyone else?
I appreciate it.
Anyone else aware of their body temperature? I'm just curious to kind of gauge the audience here.
Yeah, I mean, we've only got a few people on stage, but if you do know down there in the audience, then you just need to join the Club MAHA community, and then you can drop a comment in the purple pill.
I was going to say, if anyone in the audience, if you're hitting 98.6 degree Fahrenheit temperature, can you put a thumbs up? Anyone? Everyone knows?
Yeah.
No.
I got a feeling most of us don't even know.
Yeah.
And that's really the problem. Is we've got these chronic health conditions and everything's sort of like the new normal. And most of us don't even know what to look for anymore.
Yeah.
I can tell you as just I'm speaking for I'm under American Mission, but this is Kelly J. My average temperature is now just above 96, and I'm 59 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
Yeah. For me, I kind of speak about my personal experience with this a little bit, but so I have chronic neurological problems, and I was in the process of getting diagnosed with a really one of the worst diseases you can be diagnosed with, Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. The last time I saw a neurologist, he told me I should get fitted for a power chair before I lose function completely. But to make a long story short, I was able to recover from that completely and achieve complete remission. I say remission, and I don't say cured because it's something I'm still dealing with every day, but achieve remission. But getting into body temperature, when my body temperature elevates and I get up to 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, I feel like myself again. From an emotional, psychological standpoint, I feel great. But whatever it is I'm dealing with inside my nervous system, it starts generating a proper inflammatory response. And then, I start running into some really concerning symptoms and debilitating. So when I improve my health and I could achieve that, but then I have to pump the brakes and I have to go backwards and kind of suppress things purposely. But, I'm just, how can I put this? It would be very interesting to see this get some awareness. And
and I just want to bring up anecdotally here real quick, as you pressed me on whether I knew my body temperature, I jumped over to Amazon to buy a thermometer because now you got me thinking about it. I really want to know. And I started scrolling down the list, and they've all got images on them, and the first ones all like the default image of the thermometer reads 98.6. But as I scroll, some of the default images are reading like 97.5, 97.3. Like are some of these brands sort of memory holing what our temperature should be?
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's as far as there was some degree of them addressing this at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, and there was some talk about this. But everything you see being put up by the media is just unbased conjecture. It's speculation. It's opinion.
Well, it's even worse than that, right? Because one of the things that Bobby pointed out to us is that the mainstream press, especially television press, is heavily influenced by the pharmaceutical industry by way of the amount of money the pharmaceutical industry pays in advertising. And so it's really scary. Sometimes when they don't talk about something, it's because their advertisers don't want them to. And sometimes when they do talk about something, that content is adjusted because of how their advertisers want them to talk about it.
Yeah. Some of the claims were, as far as the media is concerned, and the things that were put out to address this was that we're dealing with fewer infections, but that's verifiably false. Infection rates are the highest they've been in years. Even things like common STD rates are through the roof right now. They're the highest they've been in like 20, 30 years.
Yeah, and you have some interesting things about that we can get into in another space about herpes simplex virus and its connection to vaccines and autism. because it's the most or one of the most common latent viruses to be triggered in a vaccine injury response that will create encephalitis in the brain, which is being shown as correlated to the trigger for autism. So all this stuff really connects back and forth in a weaving web of chronic disease. We are at 9 o'clock, so I do want to start winding this down over the next like 5 minutes because I don't want to keep people too long. It's Sunday night. But Matt, is there anything else that's really important about this topic that hasn't been said yet, aside from really like diving into the details and being able to show people the graphs, the studies, and all the other sort of footnote links?
Well, what I am going to put the presentation up, and I'm going to put it in the MAHA community. I want to link that so people can see it. I'm going to have that up tomorrow. But the biggest thing is that what I would say is that if you can read and interpret medical literature, look for yourself. You can see the data; it's there. If you can't, show this to your doctors. I'm going to put up a phenomenal presentation, and it's in-depth and it's comprehensive, and start spreading awareness. Bring it to your primary. The next time you have a checkup or one of your children has a checkup, ask your primary care physician about this. Say, hey, what do you think about our body temperatures dropping? My body temperature is low. My child's body temperature is low. You know, and what about all this research? You know, so that's my goal.
Yep. And look, if you guys do that, and you like, regardless of what response you get from your doctor, I would really, really appreciate it if you brought that information back to the Club MAHA community. If you get an unsatisfactory answer, which would not surprise me at all, we want to know about that. And if you actually get a really thoughtful answer, we would like to know that too. Because one of the things coming into this space that I was honestly hoping for is that someone would very easily be able to refute what Matt is saying. And I doubt that's the case, but it's kind of always what I'm hoping for when we come up with something sort of crowdsourced that's like, hey, this looks really scary. Like the best case scenario is finding out, actually, it's not scary. I can show you how, I promise. That's not something to worry about. It's just that, like, over and over again, it seems like the stuff we're worried about is worth worrying about. It is really scary. It is an epidemic. It is an unaddressed thing. And it often seems to go back to essentially corporate interests that are more fixated on profit and oftentimes know that they're causing these problems and simply don't care.
Yeah, I would say if you bring this up to your doctor and they try to tell you, well, body temperatures are range and having low body temperature is perfectly normal, ask them to see data on that. Say, can you show me peer-reviewed studies confirming what you're saying? And they're not going to be able to. Those studies don't exist.
Yeah, they might get kind of annoyed about it, but you know what? If they get annoyed about it, might be time to find a new doctor.
Sure, absolutely. But that's the biggest thing. So if you address this with your doctor, a medical professional, people you know, run it by them. If they try to claim that body temperature is a range and it's normal to have a body temperature of 97.5, say, well, can you show me research on that? Can you show me peer-reviewed medical research on that? And they can't. It doesn't exist. And then ask them, well, our body temperature were 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a statistical fact. Why have our body temperatures dropped? And they can't answer. There's no research. Nothing's published on this. So we're in the dark. And it's really, it's at the beginning stages of this discussion really getting started.
Right. And like the ultimate goal here in the near to midterm is to run this up the flagpole to Bobby, right? Because he is our commander and health chief in the United States right now. And he's the first head of HHS that frankly I could even name, but so passionate about it, seems so laser focused on dealing with our chronic disease epidemic, that we need to know that he's aware of this and that it's on his stack, and that he's figuring out how it fits in the equation.
I think that if the general public became aware of this information, it would change the course. It would change our healthcare system, and it would change trust in our healthcare system.
Yeah, and I've got a feeling that if this becomes a part of the general awareness, to the point where we get proper research on it, where it finally starts getting the attention it deserves, it will end up leading back to a bunch of environmental exposures that are rampant civilization-wide, and that along with all the other things and all the other reasons, it's us starting to effectively address those things. Everything from microplastics to heavy metals to the overabundance of vaccines and antibiotics, even down to our sedentary lifestyles and the fact that our lives are built for sedentarism here, especially in the West. Our chronic screen time and fixation on screens and social media and everything else, all these things and so many more have led to us as a civilization living so differently than we have over the last thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of years. And so it shouldn't surprise us that these different lifestyles we're living, the increased stress, the increase of isolation and loneliness and lack of community, the increased environmental exposures to all these toxins, to our unhealthy food system, all of it adds up to us being chronically unhealthy. And that's not just physical conditions, it's mental, it's emotional, it's arguably even spiritual. So yeah, Matt, if you have any other closing words, Shu, if you have any questions or thoughts or comments, I want to let you guys get those in here now. And then I do want to start winding down. And by the way, Shu, I'm really stoked to connect with you, man. I would just love to do a space, maybe even get you on the Club MAHA podcast on Wednesday. We generally reach anywhere from 30 to 100,000 people, and just talk about your knowledge about all these MAHA health conditions and situations vis-a-vis the military and any other perspective you might have, buddy.
Yeah, I don't want to add anything here, but I would love to do the same and really talk about the obesity epidemic in the military.
That's
along
great,
with
man.
Other issues.
I mean, it's terrible, but
Yeah.
I would absolutely love to put a spotlight on that and get more attention to it, man. So yeah, let's hit each other up in the back channels and get that going.
Perfect.
Great, man. Appreciate you. Matt, any other thoughts here right now? And we're going to continue to bang this drum. We're gonna get a really concise video presentation together. You're gonna have that great thread ready by tomorrow. If you want, folks in the audience, if you want to be aware of that thread, if you want to be aware when we go live for spaces, for the podcast, if you want to be a part of a grassroots community that's really focused on not just on what Bobby's doing, but on what we can do individually in our own lives, in our households, in our communities, for our own health decisions, for our purchasing decisions, for how we can get involved in both policy and electoral politics together. Join the Club MAHA community. Join us in this. This is a long-term battle, and we really need to connect to do this well. And there's nothing quite like a grassroots movement of just real everyday people connecting to build movements together. I've never been a part of anything more validating, more rewarding, and more enjoyable, frankly, than my time in grassroots movements. And I've been doing this for over 20 years. Johnny, hey man, real quick, what's going on, buddy? We're just about to close out.
Hey, just wanted to say great space. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, sure can.
Yeah, and then you talk about the grassroots action. I just want to give a quick shout out for anybody in North Carolina. They got a vote coming up Tuesday about this pesticide liability shield. They're trying to squeeze it in real quick, so a lot of people are trying to show up and get loud about it. So yeah.
Oh yeah, well here, let me just give a quick primer on that. For anyone who doesn't know, Bayer Monsanto and other pesticide manufacturers are on a lobbying tour around the country to pass state level legislation to shield them from prosecution for the dangers and the harms caused by their products. It looks like they are going to be successful in Georgia, and you said North Carolina. It looks like they're trying to sneak one in. I think South Carolina passed one into law. And so unless we get Bobby, and I'm hopeful that he will, but unless we get Bobby to pass something at the federal level that preempts these state laws, Bayer Monsanto and all these other companies are going to get immunity from the consequences of their product. And for anyone who's been focused big time on the vaccine issue, this is very similar, right? 1986, they passed the vaccine immunity law, and now we can't sue them for these vaccine injuries. They have a very small program where they can shuffle you off with a settlement, but there's nothing we can do to actually hold these manufacturers properly accountable. And they're doing the same thing with pesticides. It's harming farmers, it's harming home gardeners, it's harming all of us because glyphosate and these other pesticides are ending up in our foods. It's killing us. It is absolutely killing us. So thanks for giving that a shout. That's North Carolina. If you're there or if you know anybody there, let everyone you know, and make one last push because they're going to vote on it on Tuesday. And if it works like most other states, once it passes as a bill, the governor still needs to sign it. So even if they pass the bill, we've got time to get the governor to veto it.
Yeah, we need to list the states of the current, where they're at on this Monsanto bill, because American Mission, we created that CTA, and if we can get that updated and pushed out again.
Ping Billy and Danielle. We've got a group thread with
Yeah.
them. That's the Council on Domestic Relations. Last I checked, they've been trying to track that. And they're swamped right now because, with all these MAHA policies, it's like drinking from the fire hose. Everything's hitting us at once. And that should be expected because they know that we're a powerful voting bloc and that if we have time to focus on each issue individually, we can be extremely effective. So they're on a full court press here. But that doesn't mean we can slow down. It does mean we need to speed up. I don't recommend anybody allow too much stress into their lives about this. But the flip side to that is do have a sense of urgency. Do the best you can to be aware of what's going on. Do the best you can to spread the information to other people. Do the best you can to connect with us, with Club MAHA. Follow projects like American Values. They are constantly posting worthwhile information that you want in your feed. There's a number of accounts. I can't even list them all off the top of my head right now. But to just, if you're going to spend time on X, right, and you're going to spend time scrolling, try to make sure that the quality of your feed is high so that you're getting this information as it comes across your desk, And with that, I do want to close this out. I want to thank you again, Matt, for bringing this to our attention. We're going to keep banging this drum. We're going to keep working with you on this. Shu, thank you again so much for showing up, man. I'm thrilled to connect with you, buddy. And we'll get that conversation going in the back channels. And everyone for showing up. I'm super grateful for your time on a Sunday evening. And I do hope to see you again in Spaces. We're going to have a MAHA update roundup tomorrow, launched from here in the Club MAHA community at 2 p.m. Eastern. And the plan is to do those every Monday and to just have a good, concise sort of roundup space followed by discussion with the community. So barring anything else, that's a great place to check in once a week and just find out what's going on. So yeah, really grateful for everyone involved here tonight. Thank you again so much. Thank you, American Mission, as always, for streaming us. You're such a great partner in all of this work, and we're really grateful for you. And we will hopefully see
But new
you
research
all
claims
again
that's not
very
the case
soon.
anymore.
Stay close, stay healthy, and keep loving your hearts.
Well, we've been hearing forever that 98.6 is the normal body temperature.
But new research claims that's not the case anymore, and there could be a new normal.
Your normal body temperature is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit.
Temperature of my body was about 98, about 0.6 degrees Fahrenheit.
The thermometer shows 98.6 degrees. That is normal body temperature.
And normal body temperature.
98.6 has long been considered that normal magic number, but Emily Kinzer is here with word from a doctor who said that's changing.
For 150 years, it's been commonly known the average human body temperature.
98.6.
Even the thermometers at the drugstore say so. But what if we told you this is no longer the norm and our bodies have cooled down considerably?
My name is Matt Cormier. Today I'm here to discuss a global health crisis that no one is addressing, the decline of our body temperatures worldwide. Healthy resting body temperature is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit or 37 degrees Celsius, and this has been the average globally for over a century. But our body temperatures have been collectively dropping, and 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit is no longer the average. Most people can no longer maintain healthy resting body temperature. So what's going on? Why is a person's body temperature important? And what's causing our body temperatures to drop? Let's start with the basics. A person's body temperature is one of the most accurate markers of overall immune function and metabolic rate. That's why it's known as a vital sign. In the 1800s, Dr. Carroll measured thousands of his patients' body temperatures and concluded that 98.6 degrees was the average. For over a century, 98.6 degrees remained the average and was considered the gold standard marker for good health. But something happened after 1975. Our body temperature started dropping. 98.6 degrees is no longer the average. Today, the average is 97.7 degrees Fahrenheit. So why is body temperature so important and considered a vital sign? Let's briefly look at how changes in body temperature indicate changes with immune function and metabolism. A temperature above 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit indicates acute illness and active immune response. Your metabolic rate speeds up to provide fuel for this inflammatory response to clear a pathogen. At 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, this is considered immune system homeostasis. Everything is running as it should. When a person's body temperature falls below 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, it means the immune system is suppressed and can't mount a proper inflammatory response to clear pathogens. Infections become chronic and exist in a latent state that generate low-grade inflammation that waxes and wanes. Low body temperature often coincides with hypersensitivities to dietary and environmental allergens, and metabolic rate is slow and sluggish. Our immune systems rely on coordinated reactions to deal with pathogens, many of which are temperature sensitive. A person's body temperature provides a thermal exclusion zone for infections like viruses, parasites, bacteria, and fungus. Now we're going to talk about metabolic rate.
And we think that body temperature has to do with basal metabolic rate.
Your body generates heat as a byproduct of metabolic reactions, breaking down nutrients and converting them into energy. A higher metabolic rate produces more heat.
We get two forms of energy, motion and heat, by the chemical combination of oxygen and food.
For every 1.8 degree drop in body temperature, metabolic rate decreases by 10%. The enzymes that facilitate chemical reactions in the body work optimally at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit as well. So if your core temperature drops, enzyme activity slows, reducing energy production and overall function. Historically, it's been common for the elderly to have lower body temperatures. This happens because as we age, our metabolism slows down and our hormone levels drop. Studies have shown that seniors rarely hit 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and the older they are, the lower their body temperature becomes. So, if it's normal for our body temperatures to drop as we age, why are the body temperatures of children, teenagers, and middle-aged adults dropping? One major factor in this could be our hormones. Testosterone, for instance, is a key regulator of metabolic rate and metabolism. In the same time frames that our body temperatures have been dropping, so have men's testosterone levels across all age groups. Currently, men's testosterone levels in the United States are their lowest in recorded history. As the average body temperature among younger generation continues to fall, we're seeing a rise in conditions once reserved for old age, such as diabetes, chronic kidney disease, arthritis, and obesity. Now we're going to talk about the link between body temperature and metabolic rate, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, and cancer. A slow metabolic rate is a precursor to metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is a cluster of biochemical and physiological abnormalities associated with the development of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, and many autoimmune conditions. 40% of the United States population currently meets the criteria for metabolic syndrome, and only 12% of us are considered metabolically healthy. It's established that a lower body temperature is tied to a slower metabolism, and a slower metabolism is directly linked to insulin resistance and diabetes. In the same time frame that our body temperatures have been dropping, cases of diabetes have been skyrocketing. There has been a 6-fold increase in diabetes diagnoses in the United States, going from 5.7 million in 1980 to 38 million in 2021. Globally, the rate of diabetes diagnoses has gone from 200 million in 1990 to 830 million in 2022. According to the CDC, the rate of diabetes is expected to double by the year 2050. Having diabetes significantly raises your risk for various types of cancer. As our body temperatures have been dropping, cancer rates have been skyrocketing as well. Currently, 1 out of 2 men and 1 out of 3 women will be diagnosed with cancer at some point in their lives today. Multiple studies have shown that raising core temperature is an effective treatment strategy for many different diseases and conditions, including cancer and even autism. Maybe you've heard the quote, "Give me the power to produce fever and I'll cure all disease." Parmenides, 500 BC. There's something known as the fever effect with autism spectrum disorder. It's been shown that when a child with autism develops a fever, they see a drastic reduction in the symptoms they're experiencing. It's even been shown that nonverbal autistic children become verbal when their body temperature elevates. As soon as their fever comes down and body temperature decreases, their symptoms return. The rate of autism diagnoses in the United States is currently 1 out of 36. There has been a narrative pushed around the world to normalize the drop in body temperatures we're experiencing. They're trying to create a new normal.
We're living much healthier lifestyles now. There's an awareness on exercise, there's an awareness on nutrition, and that is allowing our bodies not to work as hard to maintain a steady temperature. Accessibility of over-the-counter medications like NSAIDs or ibuprofen, for example, is helping our bodies decrease inflammation. And when there's less inflammation, there's a lower body temperature.
A noteworthy study was conducted in 2002 that disproved this narrative. It was shown that a relatively isolated community of people in the Bolivian Amazon, known as the Chamani tribe, still held healthy resting body temperature of 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, despite the drop happening globally. They also had some of the lowest rates of diabetes, heart disease, and Alzheimer's disease in the world. But in just 16 years, they experienced a drastic decline in body temperature that mirrored what was happening elsewhere in the world. Their body temperatures dropped from 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit to 97.7 degrees Fahrenheit in less than 2 decades. Their living conditions didn't change, neither did their diets, and they weren't dealing with fewer infections. Something new was introduced into their community that caused their body temperatures to drop. We'll get into that in episode 2. In episode 2, we'll be covering what's causing our body temperatures to drop, what it means for your health if you have low body temperature, and a practical guide to restoring metabolic rate and achieving 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. "98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, right on the money." Today, we've learned the importance of body temperature in relation to health and disease. Are you hitting healthy 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, or are you running colder? What about your family? What about your children or your grandchildren? Thank you for watching. Please give this a share. We'll see you on episode 2. This is Health Uncensored.
Well, we've been hearing forever that 98.6 is the normal body.
Hello, folks. I'm Matt Cormier, and this is episode. Hello, folks. Hello, folks. I'm Matt Cormier. Hello, folks. I'm Matt. Cormier, and this is episode 2 of Body Temperatures in Decline. In our last episode, we discussed a disturbing trend. Our average body temperatures are dropping around the world, and most of us can no longer maintain healthy resting body temperature of 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. In this episode, we're going to talk about the role body temperature and thermal regulation have on health and immune function. We're also going to discuss what's causing our body temperatures to drop. Let's do a quick refresher on the basics. A body temperature above 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit means acute immune activation, active infection, robust inflammatory response, elevated metabolic rate, enhanced detoxification. At 98.6 degrees even, it means immune system and metabolic homeostasis. It also means hormonal and nervous system balance. A body temperature below 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit means suppressed immune response, latent and chronic infections, chronic low-grade inflammation, metabolic disease, toxicity and poor detoxification, hormone and nervous system imbalances, and hypersensitivities to environmental and dietary allergens. So what's causing our body temperatures to drop? Our body temperatures are primarily controlled by the hypothalamus in the brain. The hypothalamus acts as your body's thermostat. The thyroid, liver and gallbladder, mitochondria, gastrointestinal microbiome, and hormones also play a significant part in controlling body temperature as well. The first thing we're going to talk about is heavy metal toxins. Heavy metal toxins disrupt the hormones, nervous system, and suppress overall immune function. Multiple studies have shown that exposure to heavy metal toxins like cadmium, mercury, and lead can lower body temperature in animal models. These toxins become sequestered in the brain, which disrupts hypothalamus function. Heavy metal toxin exposures have also been shown to negatively affect the thyroid and promote hypothyroidism as well, which will lower body temperature too. As recently as 2021, it was shown that the majority of food we're consuming is heavy metal toxic. Even baby foods in the United States were found to contain dangerous levels of lead, cadmium, arsenic, mercury that far exceeded EPA guidelines. One of the main ways we're being exposed to heavy metals is due to unchecked environmental pollution. Toxins are released into the atmosphere, mix with our clouds, and come back down into our soil and crops with the rain. Our brains are protected from toxin exposures by the blood-brain barrier. Exposure to radio frequency radiation from wireless technology has been shown to increase the permeability of the blood-brain barrier, which can reduce its ability to prevent toxins from entering the central nervous system. Now let's talk about antibiotics. The bacteria in your gut play a significant role in thermoregulation. Research has shown that lab rabbits experience a significant decrease in body temperature after receiving prescription antibiotics. Another study using lab mice produced the same results, where the lowering of body temperature was permanent. The drop in body temperature was due to the antibiotics disrupting the bacterial diversity of the gastrointestinal microbiomes. The bacteria present in the GI microbiome play a central role in a person's metabolism and overall immune function. In episode 1, we looked at the link between low body temperature, low basal metabolic rate, and diabetes. It's been shown that antibiotic use is associated with a significant increased risk of development of diabetes later on in life. The overprescribing of antibiotics, especially without having a clear bacterial infection diagnosis, has become a very serious problem. In the United States, between 2006 and 2010, over 1.3 billion prescriptions for antibiotics were written. Now we're going to talk about microplastics. Hormone abnormalities can affect thermoregulation and metabolic function as well. In particular, elevated estrogen levels have been shown to lower a person's body temperature. Microplastics greatly increase or mimic estrogen levels in the body. These chemicals bind to estrogen receptors. They also interfere with the body's natural process of breaking down and eliminating estrogen. Recent studies have shown that the average human brain contains up to 10 grams of microplastics, more than a plastic spoon's worth. Microplastics can now be found everywhere on Earth, from the peak of Mount Everest into the depths of our oceans. Studies show that an average person consumes about 5 grams of microplastics a week, roughly the weight of a credit card. Now we're going to discuss vaccines. Viral infections can trigger metabolic disease and cause issues with thermoregulation and low body temperature as well. Common viral infections like those from the herpes family have even been implicated as playing a central role in the development of diabetes. There is something known as vaccine-induced viral reactivation. It's where a person receives a vaccine which disrupts their immune system and triggers the reactivation of viruses that they're already carrying. These reactivated viruses cause metabolic disease by triggering inflammatory processes in the organs and brain. In episode 1, we looked at the Chomani tribe in the Amazon rainforest. In the early 2000s, their community still held healthy resting body temperature of 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, despite the drop happening elsewhere globally. They also had some of the lowest rates of heart disease, obesity, diabetes, and Alzheimer's disease in the world, conditions that have become commonplace in populations that have experienced the drop in body temperature. But something happened between 2002 and 2016, and their body temperatures rapidly declined. In 2002, the Chomani Health and Life History Project was formed, receiving funding from the National Institute of Health in the United States. They deployed to Bolivia to study healthy aging, specifically cardiovascular disease and Alzheimer's disease in the Chomani tribe, and increase their access to health care. As a result, the Chomani tribe began receiving conventional Western medicine prescription medications, including antibiotics. Immunization teams also began traversing their rivers to vaccinate all of the children in the area as well. And then their body temperatures dropped. Throughout history, different cultures around the world have harnessed heat to promote good health. For instance, ancient Greeks and Romans enjoyed hot springs and public baths. Native Americans used sweat lodges. Other species have been known to utilize heat to bolster immune function as well, something known as behavioral fever. When goldfish contract bacterial infections, they instinctively swim to water that's 2 to 3 degrees Celsius warmer, which has a significant effect on bolstering their immune response and clearing the infection. It was shown that even healthy goldfish experience enhanced immune defenses when in these warmer water conditions. When honeybees are faced with infection, they begin rapid movement, raising the core temperature of their hive, which greatly improves survival rates. The same effect has been shown in humans. For instance, poliovirus replication drops 200-fold during fever. Elevated body temperature stops influenza and SARS-CoV-2 replication. It's even been shown that hyperthermia treatment is an effective strategy to clear herpes family viruses. It's also been shown that nearly all fungal infection species are inhibited by healthy resting body temperature, with each degree increase slowing fungal growth further. Fungal infections are opportunistic and favor a cold body. Hypothermia treatment has been shown to combat cancer as well. Hyperthermia treatment fights cancer by strengthening the immune response, increasing antigen presentation through heat shock proteins, boosting cytotoxic T cell activity, and activating natural killer cells to detect and destroy tumors. On the other end of the spectrum, multiple studies have shown that a colder body temperature suppresses immune function and results in a decrease in lymphocyte proliferation, a reduction of natural killer cell count, and overall downregulation of innate and adaptive immune responses. As the result of these toxin exposures, microplastics, antibiotics, vaccines, and wireless radiation, we're all becoming immunocompromised. We don't fight off infections anymore. Instead, we overreact to allergens in our diet and our environment. When this is happening and body temperatures are low, it means that infections can establish reservoirs in the organ systems in the body. Everything becomes latent and generates chronic low-grade inflammation. When you get healthy and raise body temperature and improve metabolic rate, underlying latent infections become acute. In holistic health circles, this is known as a healing crisis. In episode 3, I'm going to talk about how to raise body temperature to healthy 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, improve metabolic rate, cover detoxification, and how to manage the healing crisis. Thank you for watching. This is Health Uncensored.